Well, Leslie, the first relationship that African-American women have to learn how to nurture is the relationship with themselves. And many times, because of the fact that we're not given permission to be who we are, we're not given permission to love ourselves. We're told that we're being selfish, but men are given permission to be selfish, and women generally are selfless, especially African-American women. And oftentimes, Leslie, we take on too much. We want to fix everybody. We want to go and get a broken man and fix him up. And I was saying to someone the other day, it's like build a bear. We want to build a man. You can't do it. That's not your job. If he's not grown and a man, when you meet him, leave him where he is. If you met him with stripes and plaids on, he's probably going to wear stripes and plaids later. You can take the man out of the country, but you can't take the country out the man.
Welcome to Onward and Upward with Leslie E. Royal. I'm Leslie, and I will be interviewing exceptional African-American women who have made an amazing difference in their local and global community. One such accomplished woman is Dr. Joyce Morley, who is a licensed psychotherapist and the president and CEO of Morley Associates. Dr. Joyce, thank you so much for joining us today.
Leslie, thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you so much for engaging me in this magnificent project, and congratulations to you also.
Thank you so much. I am honored to have you here with me today. You are a woman of substance for sure. I've been following you for the last several years and have been impressed with you along the way. And so I'm just excited about talking to you today, and welcome to Onward and Upward with Leslie E. Royal.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And let's talk about you a little bit. You are the youngest of 14 children. How did you find your way in such a big, beautiful family?
And I like to say, Leslie, to people, same mother, same father. So there weren't any steps and all of those. We did well. We did quite well. My father was from the Aleutian Islands. My grandmother was from the Bahama Islands. So I'm really only second generation American. And we grew up in a loving household. And even though there were 14 children, but I have siblings who are old enough for my parents. I have nieces and nephews who are older than me. And so, you know, God saw it befitting that they couldn't finish until they had Joyce. And so I'm just so thankful, being the youngest of the 14, we were brought up in a family of love. God was at the center of everything that was done. And my mom and my dad, we were vegetable farmers, and we were not sharecroppers. We owned the farm, the family, my aunts, uncles, my grandmother, everybody was a part of that. And we were taught the benefits of being able to have your own. I grew up in a home. We owned our own home, land and property, even during that time. I can't complain, Leslie, because I didn't go lacking for anything. We didn't borrow, all those things like that, but we were a sharing family. My mom would share with others. And if there wasn't enough to feed the children in the neighborhood who were at the house, we couldn't eat until they were gone. She just was not going to feed us and not see someone else not eat. So everybody was inclusive, no matter what color, no matter who they were at that particular time. So it was a wonderful, loving family. There are only 5 of us left now, but God saw it befitting that through time that I learned quite a bit, and I cherished having a family that large and cherished having a mom and a dad the way that I had.
Yes, thank you so much. Family is so important. And Dr. Joyce, how did your family, how did your parents and your older siblings, your older brothers and sisters, inspire you to be the best that you could be?
Well, I was very inspired by my parents. My mom always believed that whatever you wanted to do, you could do it. And I watched her save. My mom only had an 8th grade education, but she was a mathematician. She was very brilliant. And I was sharing with my grandson, my 11-year-old grandson and my 10-year-old grandson last week, that my mom knew the wreck of the Hesperus. She was a poet, and she could recite the entire poem. So we were always, we had to learn. You had to go to school. School was not an option. You had to be able to do that. The other thing is that just seeing her working, seeing her sharing and giving to others and helping others along the way. And then my siblings, majority of them were educators. As a matter of fact, one of my sisters happened to be my teacher. And instead of calling her Miss Morley, I just could not stand it. She was my teacher and I had to call her Miss Morley, so I gave her the nickname of Molly. And so I had siblings who were educators, and that was a thing that led me into the field of education. Wanted to be an education, always wanted to be a teacher, always wanted to be able to do that. On the other side, that actress. And all of those things came into fruition, but I had those people there that were supportive, those people there that were able to say, you can do it. It was yes, you can. So way before President Barack Obama came up with yes, you can, it was always in my family. There was always the belief and there was the support. Whatever we needed, we got it. And it wasn't one where the mom was expensive. She was a seamstress. And so she can look at something and cut her own pattern and make our clothes. So if we saw something that we wanted, we could have it. And as I said, I never went lacking for anything. There was love, there was understanding, and there was that belief that even at that time and at my age, I believe I could talk to mom about anything, including sex. And so it was amazing back then that we had that kind of relationship.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your love for your family. And I do want to ask, we're living in a millennial generation now. The millennials, they do their thing. Why is it important that they understand our history of coming from loving families who nurture us, we support each other, we're there for each other? So what advice would you give the young people today who are starting their own families?
Well, one of the things I think, Leslie, would be very important, I was on an Instagram interview on Sunday and encouraging young people to get to know their history, get to know where they came from, because without a history, there's no present. Without a present, there's no future. And many times what has happened is sometimes they operate in sound bites. They see things happening. They really believe they're free, especially African-American youth. Many of our Black children believe that they've actually arrived. When we've seen in the last few months with the murder of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, all of those, and we can go on and on and on, that they really thought that they had arrived and that they were free. And so when they get to understand their history, then they'll get to appreciate where they're trying to get and go in life, to respect the elders, sit at the feet of some of their elders, let some of the elders help them, and not believing that they know everything, that they have all the answers. And sometimes I find that many of our young people sort of denounce. They laugh at, they push the elders aside instead of trying to get as much as they can. The more that you can get all that you can from your elders, it fills that cup till it's running over. It makes you stronger. It makes you brighter. It makes that vision much keener. It gives you knowledge at a level that just goes beyond anything imaginable. So I think the more that they can learn about the history, learn about slavery, and learn about all those people that helped. Who was the first person that was killed in the American Revolution? Did they know that it was Crispus Attucks, who was a Black man? Understanding those things that many times are not taught in school, that education is greater than a book, is sitting at the feet of their elders, getting to understand their grandmother, taking time with grandma. And now, you know, these days, Leslie, many times grandmothers are not too much older than mamas. And so it's being able to have that time and taking time. And I say to the older people, take time with them and talk with them. Instead of being punitive, pour into them, help them, give them the answers instead of trying to help them to figure it out. And I say to young people, there's only one time around, make the best of it. Get all you can while you can. It makes you stronger. It makes you better, because it is a fight. And if you have much of the information you need and the weapons that you need going forward, it makes the fight a lot easier.
Oh, yes, yes. Family history, our Black history is important. And oh, yes, education is the great equalizer. Yes, indeed. Now, why is it important to you to excel in everything that you do?
Well, my mother used to say either you do it well or not at all. But then in all actuality, there was no not at all. You're going to do it because you were told. And we were always told, you know, when we were children, you do as I tell you. You know, and I say to people now, you tell children what to do and you ask adults what to do. It's important to do your best. And I say to my children, I have 3 daughters, they all have their PhDs, and they all graduated from Spelman College. My oldest granddaughter graduated from Spelman also. And I saw some writings that she did last week, and I'm just so proud of her. I'm proud of all of them. And I say to them, you be the best that you can. And with an education, I can't promise you everything, but one thing it does do is free you up. You can get your foot in the door, and it'll be hard to close the door on your foot. The other thing, Leslie, is I say to them, I'm not looking for you to be perfect, but I'm looking for you to be exceptional, exemplary, to be able to reach to the highest that you can. And when you can ask yourself the question, have I done the best that I can? And you can answer, yes, I have. Yes, I did. Then you know that you have reached those heights, because what you do speaks for you. How you do it speaks for you. When you do it speaks for you. And so I've always believed in doing the best that I can, achieving all that I can. Sometimes I look at my own Vita and I was like, yeah, I really did it. None of this is make believe. And so I taught my daughters, I teach my grandchildren, you be the best that you can. So when people look at you, they're not just looking at a Black person, a Black male or Black female. There is a legacy that comes with you, but there's also more that you bring to the table. There's more than what they're looking at on the outside. That when you open your mouth speaks for you. When you can be able to put together and understand why you did what you did when you did it, it makes a world of difference. But always strive to be at the top, reaching for the sky, looking to the stars, because the sky is the limit. And I say to them, don't hold your head down, because if you hold your head down, you're going to be blinded. You can't see where you're going. But when you look up and hold your head up, there's so much that you can partake. Looking through the windshield, not in the rearview mirror, and not looking through the side views, only to make sure that you're going in the right direction.
Dr. Joyce, that is why you are on today. Thank you for those wonderful, wonderful words of wisdom. Now, as a psychotherapist, can you explain this to us? Why is it sometimes difficult, or why is mental health a stigma in the Black community?
Well, Leslie, one of the biggest reasons that mental health has been such a stigma in the Black community, because we were brought up to not tell your business. Keep everything in the house. Don't go out in there and tell it our business. You know, that's what this belongs in the house. And so what happened is we kept a lot of secrets. And at one point I was doing a national speaking tour, and I was called the Secret Woman. I did a poem and things like that. And those things got in the way. But those secrets that we held along the way kept us from being able to be our fullest and being able to get to be who we could totally, that holistic person. So mental health in the Black community was seen as a label. You were labeled as being quote unquote crazy. Something had to be wrong with you. It became a joke, but I believe in it. And that's why I am a licensed psychotherapist, marriage and family therapist. I believe in it because there are latent issues, things from my past that sometimes block our present and keep us from being able to imagine our full future. And so being able to deal with those emotional and psychological issues. And my book, Seeds for the Harvest of a Lifetime, I talk about closing the cracks in life doors. As we go through life, it's like going through a house, and things happen in each room that we go in. If there was a rape, if there was an abuse, if there were all those things that were going on. And Leslie, for some reason, as human beings, those things that were negative seem to be more pronounced. We seem to remember them much more than we do the positive things. They seem to overshadow. So going through a process of psychotherapy to take you back to those rooms in the present, in the here and now, to be able to assess, evaluate, and understand the pain from then in a safe environment of now will help you to be able to go back and close it. You might not be able to fix it because it's in the past, but you can look at it and deal with the emotional aspects and the psychological aspect, the heart and the mind that are haunting you now, doing a cognitive restructuring. Because, you know, when we were younger, you remember in the house, all the rooms seemed so much larger. And you become an adult, you go back in the house, it's like these small rooms, these rooms weren't that large. And sometimes we see things in a different manner, and we take those into adulthood, and they have an impact on the relationships. Decide whether you have a relationship or a situation. A relationship is for the long haul. A situation is for convenience. So going through psychotherapy, dealing with those mental health needs, dealing with the emotional needs, helps one to be able to get rid of the baggage, as Erica Baidu said, get rid of the baggage, be able to lighten your load and move forward so that you can make plans, you can have a future, you can love yourself better, giving yourself permission to love others and make better choices.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joyce, for that wonderful insight. Now, Dr. Joyce, as a relationship expert for TV shows like, I believe TV1, Fatal Attraction, Oxygen Network, Snapped, those are intriguing shows that people watch. But for us in our everyday lives, why is it imperative that we get counseling when we feel overwhelmed?
It's important to get counseling, Leslie, when you feel overwhelmed, because if you can make an intervention, it's greater to prevent. If you can prevent things, and it's harder to intervene. Once things start spiraling, it makes it much more difficult to be able to go in and intervene and stop the cycle. Our lives are cycles. Most of the things that we do are cycles. We have relationships in cycles. Our behaviors in cycles. So if you can understand the cycle of a relationship, the cycle of things going in your life, when you find yourself becoming overwhelmed, you don't wait for the breakdown. You don't wait for you to be able to not be able to function, or suicidal ideations or attempts. You look at it from the beginning. The minute that you find yourself feeling stressed out, not being able to handle things, where you're just crying, you can't get out of bed, you're depressed, that's the time when you seek help. And so when I look at those shows, Fatal Attraction and all those, and I used to do Love and Relationships on V103, helping people to understand, and these are real people, these are real incidents, these are not made up stories, these are real stories that took place in life, that people get into situations, Leslie, based on where they are at that particular time, but they might not fit. And so sometimes what we do, we hold on. And again, in my book, Seeds for the Harvest of a Lifetime, I talk about being able to understand who fits in your life. Everybody doesn't fit in your life. I was talking with my middle daughter, Dr. Tanea, yesterday, and we were talking about the fact that everybody shouldn't be in your life forever and a day. Some are just couriers. They came to drop off a package and leave. Some are short-term parkers. The meter runs out on them. Let them go. Some of them are monthly parkers. They're only there for a month, or they come every month and you let them go. And then they're the long-term parkers. But sometimes what happens with us, we become overwhelmed because we want everybody in our lives. We want to be a part of everything. And everything is not meant for you. And understanding that sometimes along your journey, everybody can't go with you. And so we hold on to people, situations, and circumstances that don't fit, probably never fit, but we want to fit with the larger scheme of what else is out there. And when you're perpetrating a fraud, trying to be somebody that you're not, trying to be and take on and have the things that you know that you really can't have, spending too much for a purse that is empty and you have no money in it. Your purse should never have anything less in it than what you paid for it. And then being able to try to get shoes that you know that don't fit. All those things so that you can belong. Those things stress you out because it's not you. And so we don't want to wait until things are just so overwhelming that you have a nervous breakdown, or you find yourself in a psych ward, or you find yourself trying to take your life. It's never that important. It is never that serious. There's nothing wrong with getting help. The minute that you see that things are going awry, then it's time to pick up that phone and call someone and get help. And making sure that person is licensed, making sure that person has some history, making sure that person fits your need. Through the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy, we have a thing called Therapist Locator. And you can go on. Everybody that's on Therapist Locator is a clinical therapist. I'm not only a marriage and family therapist, I am a marriage and family therapist supervisor, and I'm a diplomat, a marriage family therapist. I'm a board certified executive coach. So I deal with people before they get to that point. And sometimes when they're at that point, intervening, helping them to be able to learn how to help themselves. And that's what it's all about. It's not telling people what to do. It's helping them to understand what's wrong, be able to see that picture, understand the cycle, and understanding where to be able to prevent it from the beginning, or they see themselves going down that path, Leslie, how to intervene and stop it before it gets out of hand and out of control.
Thank you, Dr. Joyce, for that valuable insight. Now, you just mentioned being a relationships expert for V103, and I believe also for 104.1 radio.
Mhm.
As African American women, why is it important for us to nurture our relationships with our partners, with our children, with our family members, with our bosses even? We need help knowing how to deal with our bosses.
Right. Right. Well, Leslie, the first relationship that African American women have to learn how to nurture is the relationship with themselves. And many times, because of the fact that we're not given permission to be who we are, we're not given permission to love ourselves. We're told that we're being selfish, but men are given permission to be selfish, and women generally are selfless, especially African American women. And oftentimes, Leslie, we take on too much. We want to fix everybody. We want to go and get a broken man and fix him up. And I was saying to someone the other day, it's like build a bear. We want to build a man. You can't do it. That's not your job. If he's not grown and a man, when you meet him, leave him where he is. If you met him with stripes and plaids on, he's probably going to wear stripes and plaids later. You can take the man out of the country, but you can't take the country out the man. So I think it comes down to boundaries. You know, what is it all about? Love yourself first. We give you permission to have boundaries. And then that man will begin to see, you know, Leslie, Joyce, they love themselves so much, I can't play games. Some of us have needy written right across our forehead. And when you find someone who is needy, then you're going to find the greedy. They're going to come in and try to get everything they can. You also have to model, African American women have to model for their children. I am first, God first, then me, and then you. I love myself. But what we do oftentimes is we sort of switch roles and we elevate our children and we deflate ourselves. And, you know, when my children were coming up, I used to say to them, you know, they had everything they needed. You know, they started out every year with a pair of black, brown, blue, navy blue shoes, sneakers. They had what they needed. But I didn't go out paying $50, $100 for a pair of sneakers. And I used to say to them, and when I speak to young people, you don't need anybody else's name on your behind to feel good about yourself. Wear some plain pocket jeans. You can still feel good. It's what's on the inside of your heart and in your head that makes a difference. So we have to model for our children that we're not trying to make them be adults and give them everything before they have a chance to get out there and work. And I used to say to mine when they would come to me and say, oh, Mom, I love that outfit. Oh, that's great. Oh, that would be great. And I would say to them, when you worked as hard as I have worked, you can have that too. But this time, this is mine. What's mine is what's yours is mine too. And so when you get to be an adult, you can earn the money to have whatever you want. And then when it comes to other family members, you have to have boundaries, because sometimes we don't know when to stop. Sometimes people will misuse you instead of using you. We're here to be used, not misused. And they will take and take and take. And so the first order as an African-American female is showing people how much you love yourself, not to the point of selflessness, or not to the point of vain, egotistical, narcissism, all of those things like that. But the bottom line is, when you show that, people will be less reticent to try to pull the wool over your eye, to misuse you, take advantage of you, because they'll know what time it is. But when you show your children that you love you and you love them and they have to love God, everybody will be in line. The respect will be there. And the reason why so many African-American females are disrespected by men, because they disrespect themselves. And when they see, they already know from the beginning, Leslie, that it's not the right situation. But somehow, again, they want to build a man. They want to fix him up. They want to clean him up, and they're going to get him to be where they want. If he hit you the first time, he's going to hit you the second time. It doesn't stop. And this is Dr. Joyce Morley's philosophy, and I've been out here a long time. People don't change. Yes, God can change people, but people grow, and they grow through having awareness, insight, and understanding. Then they change their behaviors, their mindset, and they change the way they treat people. But it's a process, it's not an event. And the way you start a relationship is the way it ends. So if you started being disrespected, this is going to end being disrespected. That's with your children, that's with your mate, that's with anybody that's around. Your boss, when you go in there, I'm on the school board. And as an African-American female, the disrespect, especially from some of our white males, and I have to say to them, I am not going to be disrespected. And then when we're in a professional setting, you're going to use doctor. I earned my doctorate degree. No one gave me that. I'm the first person of color to earn a doctorate degree in my field from the University of Rochester. So when I know what I went through to get that, you're not going to disrespect me. And the greatest disrespect is to call the person out of their name. The greatest disrespect is not to honor them with the name they're given or to take that earned degree away. I'm not hung up on it, but when we're in a setting that calls to be, and I watch our chair one day take an African-American male. The first time he was Mr., then he was by his first name. Then the next time in a professional setting, he was calling them a nickname. And so I thought about roots. And so we have to begin to realize the name that has been ascribed and what you earn, you should be respected by. And the minute a man decides that he's going to call you out your name, then he figures he can treat you any kind of way too. So you have to get people straight from the beginning. You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to curse, scream, but you just have to be solid. You have to have boundaries. And I say to them, you have to have those boundaries in place. You won't have balance in life unless you have boundaries.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, Dr. Joyce. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I took so much from what you just said, but I want to add one more thing. And I love that when I named partner, I named children, I named family, I named bosses, I forgot me, right?
Yes.
And so thank you for reminding me of the importance of nurturing me first. And thank you for reminding our viewers of the importance of nurturing themselves first. Wow. Wow.
You're welcome.
Yes, indeed. Now, Dr. Joyce. Now, Dr. Joyce, when you faced adversity in life, how did you overcome it?
Leslie, that's going to be a part of the tell-all book. At some point, I'm going to be doing my autobiography, and I've had many of them. The first thing was to pray. I believe in the power of prayer. That 23rd Psalm is my favorite Psalm. And then I go to 2 Chronicles 20, where you talk about Jehoshaphat. And I remind him, I don't know how I'm going to come up against. So whatever's going on in my life, whatever that adversity is, I place it and I say, Lord, I don't know how I'm going to come up against this blocker or this thing that's going on in my life. And I don't know what I'm going to do. But one thing I do know is my eyes are on you. And if you remember in 2 Chronicles 20 with Jehoshaphat, king of all Judah, when they were fighting, the Lord told him, say, show up. Just show up at the cliffs of Ziz. So sometimes when things are happening in my life, I show up at the proverbial place. I come downstairs and that's showing up. When I know I have to make calls, when I know I have to handle some business, when I know I have to do some other things. And there have been times when I have talked with someone when I'm handling an adverse situation. And I say to them, I don't know how I'm going to come up against this. But one thing I do know, my eyes are on the Lord. And I say to them, this is not my battle. And that's what he says. So it reminds me. And so those things, I journal. I do journal. And I have a little book that I consider God's little miracles that have great implications. So I don't focus on the negative all the time. I mean, small things. And I listen to that small voice. And if we recognize God speaks to us all the time. So when somebody else comes to me and says, the Lord told me this about you. And I was like, he didn't tell me because, he can talk to me directly. So people have a way where they want something from you, but there are always going to be adversities. And I cry like anybody else. That's what he's given us tear ducts from. And I think some people want to so bold and because you have degrees. And I say to people, God and I made these degrees. And if I didn't have anyone, I'm going to still be Joyce Morley. And so I look at the human being first and recognize. And then sometimes I call upon my ancestors. I call upon my mother who I know is in heaven. And sometimes I ask the ancestors to please intercede in heaven with God on my behalf. I believe that it can happen from a spiritual perspective. And so there are times when those things come about. One of the major things is praying about it, journaling about it, but also talking to someone. I talk to my daughters about things. They always know what's going on with me. Having a tried, trusted somebody. You don't want to go out there in the street because there's some people get your business and the minute they get mad with you, they're going to put it out in our street. And so my mother used to say, if you didn't tell it when you were glad, don't tell it when you're mad. And so, but there are people who will do that. And I have a book called Mama Said. The things that Mama said that you didn't want to hear, but now you can laugh about. And there's a chapter in there about the things that Mama talked about when you're dealing with adversity, dealing with those sorts of things, and the things that she taught. So and that's why it's important, Leslie, for our young people to get connected with someone, an older person, someone, and stop talking to your friends about everything, because they don't know any more than you know. And sometimes as women, as adults, we go to people who are in worse situations. And then sometimes we don't realize everybody's not truly a friend. They're player haters. They're those people want to see us down. They're going to give you the wrong information. They're going to try to make it difficult for you. They're jealous people. People hear you got a doctorate. People see what you're doing, your show that you're starting. Everybody is not excited about your dream. And sometimes what is your dream come true is somebody else's nightmare, which is their problem. So instead of them ingratiating and having a great time and thinking and loving on you, being excited, these people are doing their best to block you and pull you down. And we have to remember, as African-American women, we started with adversity. We were born into adversity. The plantation was adversity. Our men have been being taken from us and whipped and castigated and castrated, hung, all those things. And so a lot of what we see now, we're still dealing with the vestiges of slavery. Our women still have to carry on. We've been whipped, we've been raped, all the things, we're passed over. And if you're dark skinned, you still have to deal with all those. Those are still adversity. Racism is still an adversity that we're dealing with. When our children are treated inferior, when education is not coming in the way it should be. And I'm like Congressman John Lewis, and I was doing it before I heard him say it. The bottom line is, when you see things are happening, they're not right, they're not fair, and they're not just, speak up, stand up, say something, but above all, do something. And so these are the things that I say, when you find yourself feeling with adversity, instead of going to God and telling God about your problem, tell your problems about God, about how much God can and will do. And I say to people, when you're feeling down, sometimes I don't want to get up, but I say, nothing's going to happen as long as I'm laying in this bed. Get up. Open your curtains every day, your blinds, whatever you have, let that light in. I don't care if it's thundering and lightning on the outside. You don't have to have that on the inside. Use your oral positive self-talk. Have a word a day, like an apple a day. You take your vitamins, one a day vitamins, or you take your hypertension, whatever you're taking one a day, get a positive word. Have a list. Have the children join in with you. And no matter what's going on, always remember there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and this too shall pass.
That is great advice, Dr. Joyce. Great advice. And thank you so much for sharing that. Now, Dr. Joyce, what does onward and upward mean to you?
Onward and upward means to me, and again, congratulations, Leslie, on the series, on the show, means that you keep moving, that you don't see things as a stepping stones, stumbling blocks. You see them as stepping stones, that you may trip, you may fall. It's okay. The problem is not falling, not faltering, and not failing. It's not getting back up. So that onward is you get up, you pick yourself, and you keep moving, and you're always looking up. You're moving upward, and you never let it be seen as a setback. It's a setup for the great comeback. And you're believing it, that your mind and your ideas are saying, I don't care what has happened in my past. I don't care what is going on right now. I'm going to pick myself up. It's onward. It's forward march. It's upward. I'm holding my head up. I'm going to look great no matter what happens, no matter what I have and what I don't have. Instead of focusing on the lack and focusing on the negative, I'm going to focus on the positive. I'm going to negate the negativity. I'm going to move onward. I'm going to move upward. I'm going to go to heights unknown. I'm going to come up with a different project. I'm going to look at something. And during COVID-19, Leslie, we know a lot of people lost businesses. You know, I'm a contractor. I'm a psychotherapist. I am a board certified coach. If I'm not on a plane and flying somewhere, and I haven't been, so that hurt me, but I had to reinvent. The show on Kiss 104 went away. So now I'm coming up with a podcast, the things that are going on for you. And so it means that we can have the stumbling blocks, but we have to be able to come out of the stumbling blocks. What are the lessons learned to make the stepping stones? What can we do to become greater and not get caught, not lying and wallowing in the spilled milk, but looking at what do I need to do to wipe up the milk, clean it up, and carry it in a different manner so it doesn't spill again. I'm going to be onward. I'm moving on, no matter what took place and what's going on in my life, and I'm moving upward. I'm going to climb the ladder. I'm not staying at the rung that was at the bottom, because there are too many up there when I look up there that I can climb to get to the top.
Amen. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much for your kind words as well. And congratulations in advance on your new podcast. And so, Dr. Joyce, how has your faith grounded you? How is it your moral compass?
Leslie, if I didn't have faith, now I'm not going to tell everyone that I've always, was there sometimes I have to pray to God to help me to keep my faith, because there's some things that I don't understand. And I had 3 surrogate godmothers. You know, my mother died when I was 27, and I had siblings and 3 surrogate godmothers, and I lost 2 of them, one in 2016 and one in 2017, and I have one still. She's legally blind. She doesn't have an education, but she has been that surrogate because she was able to pour into me. She's 85 years old, and the others were in their 80s. So my faith is believing beyond a shadow of a doubt, because I believe in the Bible. You know, Bible stands for basic instructions before leaving earth. That if you said it, God, I'm holding it to you. I'm holding you to it. And so when I look at that 23rd Psalm, it says, the Lord is my shepherd. So that means I'm being led. I'm being led. Lead beside still waters. We're not supposed to be out here with turbulent seas and things going on in our lives like that. Still waters, green pastures. We're not supposed to have burnt grass, that no matter what's going on. So the shadows of death are those things that we're going through in our lives that we can't control. He said he'll be with us. And then I love it when he said, I prepares a table for you in the presence of your enemies. So if you think you're going to get in my way, if you think you're going to perpetrate and play a hate on me and stop me, I'm going to be the one sitting there eating. And I'm going to be the one that'll be able to eat in front of you and having no fear. Then I go to Psalms 1 and said, I'll be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, and I shall not be moved. So it's those things that get me. Then I go to Isaiah 43, and when he says, I can make a new thing, I will make a new thing now, and it'll spring forth. Do you not know it? And so I say to him, yes, I do know it. So I'm waiting for this new thing to spring forth. And I remember one Saturday, I was praying and reading the scriptures, and everywhere I looked, there was, fear not, be not dismayed. Fear not, be not dismayed. And so my mother used to always say, too, be careful what you ask for, because God will give it to you. And I said, I wonder how many times it's in the Bible. That Sunday morning, I go to Berean Christian Church. Pastor Lee is preaching. And he says, why are we afraid? He said, the Bible tells us, fear not, be not dismayed. My eyes perked up. But then it was the next thing he said. I'm sure you're wondering how many times it's in the Bible. I couldn't believe it. I was like, was this man somewhere, a camera in my house? Was he listening to my house? And he said there, it's in the Bible 365 times, one for every day. So my faith is what I've seen in my mother and believing. My mother used to get up 5 o'clock in the morning. She had to pray. And they used to say she used to trouble the throne of grace, and she would be able to send up prayers. And so I believe through prayers and believing. And I was born with another sense, because I have premonitions and I see things ahead of time. That faith, just week before last, I had a procedure, was under medication. And that night, after my daughter left, Spirit said to me, check your garage. Make sure the garage is closed. And I said to myself, I will. And I heard it just as you and I talking. But I was still a little groggy, and I laid down. The next day, the lawn guy came at 12:15 p.m. in the afternoon, and he called me. He said, Doc, are you in the house? I said, yes, I am. He said, your garage door is open. That faith that he kept me all night, because the car could have been gone, the valuables in there, my freezer full of food, all of those things, they could have tried to kick in the door that leads to the house. So that faith and belief. So I've been shown, I've tried it, I've tested it, it's true, that when you believe and you have faith in a higher power, I call him God. I don't know what other people may call him, but I call him God. It's having faith, because there was a promise that was given us. And when you read the Bible and you go through, he said, I'll hold you by the right hand and I'll lead you. And if you mount up on wings like an eagle, you're not supposed to have all these fears. And so those are the things that when I get down like humans, because people think because you have doctorate, because you're a psychotherapist, you have all these accolades, that somehow the human goes away. No, I was just grateful. I'm grateful that it was bestowed upon me by the Father, but I'm still human on all of this. I still have tragedy. I have loss. I have all of these things, but my faith in a God that's greater than me and believing, letting me know. And I really believe, Leslie, that no matter how low I get, God will never let me get so low. He'll scoop me up. And when I hear people and I coach people and they say their backs against the wall, and I always say to them, is there any wall that can hold you up? Not really. And so I'm always thankful that there's a hand behind me that keeps my back from being against the wall. And I've been to the point, because when you work for yourself, I went without insurance for 23 years. And thank goodness for affordable health. But God blessed me those 23 years. I was able to negotiate, orchestrate, and I had every type of test I ever needed. My medical needs were taken care of. That's nothing but having faith that He will meet your needs. And it's believing. It's something that you're not seeing, but knowing that it can manifest. So I have faith in a God. I have faith in being here as a human being, and my Father. And a father is supposed to take care of their children. Now, when it comes to people, I think we get crossed up, Leslie. We want to put our faith in people like us. We're mortal men and women, and we're going to let each other down, in our mates and our children, and we're going to be disappointed. But one thing I can say about having faith in God and trusting Him is that I can call Him up anytime. He's not going to hang up on me. I don't have to wait 3 or 4 days to get back to me. And sometimes not seeing it doesn't mean no, but He gives me the answer. So my faith, I'm very strong in that faith, and that's what keeps me grounded and keeps me believing and going. And I also believe in that faith that if you do somebody wrong, it's going to come back to you.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And thank you for giving a shout out to our senior pastor,
Yes.
Dr. Kerwin B. Lee of Berean Christian Church. Yes. I tell you, Dr. Joyce, I am so happy that you joined us today. You brought so much, as I knew you would. You've inspired us with your exceptional accomplishments. And you've also given us wonderful words that we will need as we're dealing with the stresses of life during this pandemic and other things. Thank you so much for taking time out of what I know to be a really busy schedule to speak with me. But before we go, because we want to keep up with you, we want to keep up with this new podcast. We want to be able to send you a message via your Facebook or via your website if we need more resources, more websites, more information on mental health. So before we go, can you share your website and your social media handles and pages and things with us?
Surely, Leslie. And Leslie, thank you so much for having me and allowing me to be able to share with others. My website is www.drjoyce.com. That's www.doctorjoyce.com. They can also find me on Facebook. I have a private Facebook, but I do have a public Facebook. So they can always follow me on Dr. Joyce Morley on Facebook. My public, I do post things there. I do a monthly blog, and I also do an e-blast that I was doing when we had the radio show on KISS, but I've kept that up because people look forward to getting that e-blast the first Saturday of the month, or that Saturday before the first Sunday. So I keep that up. I'm also on Instagram at Dr. Joyce, the Love Doctor, and it's at Dr. Joyce, Joyce, the LUVDR, at Dr. Joyce, the Love Doctor. I'm also on LinkedIn. I do go through to make sure people that I'm linking with, and people can also email me. They can email me through my website at www.drjoyce.com, and make sure you spell doctor out. You'll reach somebody else. And I'll get back to you. And you can reach me that way. You can always call my office number. And sometimes people just call the office, Leslie, so they can hear my affirmation. I'm getting ready to turn and change to a new affirmation, but that number is 770-808-6570. 770-808-6570. And lastly, I am on Twitter, and that's at Dr. Joyce, the Love Doctor, the same as the handle for Instagram. And I love social media. I'm not on there a lot. I'm usually just posting, but I use Twitter in order to get those thoughts together, especially with the election season. I want to make sure everybody votes and do what needs to be done. That's the power, that's the authority that we have. And again, if you see something, it's not right, it's not fair, and it's not just, say something, speak up, stand up, but above all, do something. And don't be afraid, because if it wasn't you this time, you're in line to be there the next time.
Thank you so much. Those are words to live by. If we see something, say something, and certainly speak up. Thank you, Dr. Joyce. You are an amazing woman who I admire deeply. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Leslie. And congratulations again. Good luck to you.
Thank you so very much.